Okay, so slide number 2. So we are going to learn, the decision control structure. Basically, we're talking about if and else and switch, and repetition control structure, basically doing while and do while, and then some branching statement. So again, this is pretty straightforward concept. Unless you haven't done any programming in the past, this is probably something that you are quite familiar with because pretty much every programming language has this control structure, and they are pretty much work the same. Okay, so I'm going to move a bit faster than normal. So control structure is basically changing the flow of your application. Okay, changing the order of how statements in your code, your application, your programs are being executed. So there are two different kinds of control structure. One is decision control, and the other one is repetition. Again, decision control is if and else and switch, and this one is while and do while and for loop and things like that. So let's actually take a look at those things in detail. So let's talk about decision control structure first. So basically, we're talking about if statement, if else statement, if else, and if statement. Okay, so again, this is very much the same with any programming language's control structure. So let's see the code. So if statement, you basically provide Boolean expression, and if this Boolean expression is true, then this statement will get executed. Now, if you have only one single statement, then you don't have to have this curly brace. But if you have a multiple statement like this, then you have to have a curly brace. Otherwise, it will just execute in this. Okay. So, even when you have a single statement, it is a better practice to have a curly braces to, provide a better reading of your code. Okay. But syntax-wise, if there is a single statement, you don't have a curly brace. Well, syntax-wise, you don't have to have this curly brace, but the logic is going to be different. Okay. So in that case, when the Boolean expression is true, the only first statement will get executed, and regardless, statement 2 will be executed. Again, if you don't have this curly brace. Okay. Okay, so this is if statement flowchart. If it is true, then statement gets, or statement or block of code, meaning multiple statements in a block will be executed. Otherwise, it will not be executed. Okay, example. So this is an example of a Boolean expression. So if grade is greater than 60, which is the case, and in this case, this will be executed. Here, we have a multiple statement. So in this case, both of these statements will be executed. If and else, so in this case, if this Boolean expression is true, this block of code will execute it. Otherwise, this block of code will be executed. So this flowchart explains, true, this block of code will be executed. If it is false, this block of code will be executed. Okay, so this is an example. So it's always a better practice to have a curly brace, as I said before. Okay. So as I said before, a coding guidelines. So you have braces, the curly braces, and you can have a nested if statement. So if this is true, then this block of code will be executed, right? And in this case, in this block of code, you can have any Java statement as well, including if statement, of course. Right? If else and if else. So basically, if this Boolean expression 1 is true, this will be executed. And then else is basically this block will be executed, right? So here we are going to have another if statement. So if this is true, then this will be executed. Otherwise, this will be executed. Again, pretty straightforward. Yeah, this is a flow chart. Example. So in this case, what gets displayed will be good, right? Okay, so if it is not over 90, so it will be executed this part, right? And then if because it's over 60, this line of code will be executed. Again, very straightforward. Common errors. Now this value has to be a Boolean type. Okay, meaning the expression should return Boolean value. Okay, so you cannot have non-Boolean value like this, and it's a compile error. Okay, so let's just show the code. Let's just try that. So this is okay, right? But if you're using, for example, the int, now it's a compile error. So it says incompatible types. It required Boolean, but found int. Okay. Make sure you have a space between else and if. Okay. Again, these are the things that IDE will actually tell you. Okay, so this is actually important. So there is a difference between single equal sign and double. Okay, double equal sign is actually for the comparison, whether they are in fact same thing or not. Okay, this one is assignment. So here, what we are saying is we are assigning 0 to number. Now, we need to compare whether the number is the same thing as 0. In that case, you have to use double equal sign. Okay, so double equal sign means yes, they are the same thing. Okay, so make sure you use the double equal sign for comparison. Okay, so this is a sample application. Okay, nothing really complex. So I'm going to just move on. Now, switch statement. Switch statement is you use a switch and then you provide switch expression, and then you're going to use a case statement. So if this switch expression result in this case, then you are going to execute this block of code. If this switch expression result in this case, then this will be executed. And if there is no match, then the default will be executed. Okay. Now, you don't have to have a parenthesis, the curly brace for these blocks. Okay. All right. So, and then whenever there is a break, it will actually stop right there and move out of the switch statement. If you don't have a break, then it will continue. So in this case, suppose if you take this break statement out, and if the case matches with this guy, statement 1, 2 will be executed, and then this will be executed. Okay, so it will get executed until it sees the break statement. Okay, so we'll see that's how the switch statement works. So make sure you have a break statement for each case. Okay, so switch expression is or integer or character expression, and it cannot be string expression, unfortunately. However, it will be supported in the next version of JDK, which is JDK 7, which we don't have. Okay. So let's see. So these are the syntax I just talked about. It first evaluates the switch expression, and it will jump to the case where selector matches the value of the expression. And the program will execute the statement in order from that point until break statement is encountered. Okay. And when break statement is encountered, then it will move out of the switch structure. If there is no matching, then the default block will be executed. Okay, so as I said before, the multiple statement in switch case does not have to be inside the curly braces. Okay. So this 2 bullet is basically talking about if you don't have a break for that coding block in that block of code, it will continue to execute, okay, until it sees the break statement. So this the switch expression, when the value result in this one, then this block of code will be executed. When this is matched, this block of code will be executed and things like that. And if there is no match, the default block will be executed. So in this case, we have grade variable 92, and then this is the switch expression. Okay, so it results in int value, which is good. Okay, and then these are the cases. Okay, so if it is 100, then this block of code will be executed, and since we have a break, it will be out of this switch structure, and the statement right after that will be executed. If there is no match, then this block of code will be executed. Any question on switch statement? It's relatively straightforward. Okay, so coding guidelines. Whether you want to use if or switch statement is judgment call, but in general, if you have a multiple, if you have a multiple if and else, it's a good idea to think about switch. Okay. However, a constraint of switch is that the switch statement can make decisions based on only a single integer or a character value. Okay, so this is a constraint of switch. If you have to actually use some more complex logic, okay, then you probably have to use if statement. Okay. Question from Paul. In this example, is it better to use if statement or switch statement? So let's get back to this example. What do you think? On slide number 26, switch or if? In this case, switch statement, okay? Because, the expression is based on int, right? And if you try to use if and else statement, you probably have a multiple nested if and else, okay? So, in this case, switch is probably better. Question, yeah. All right, moving forward. So let's move on a little bit faster. Repetition. So we are talking about while and do while and for loop, okay? So while, the syntax goes like this. As long as this Boolean expression is true, you're going to execute this block of code, okay? So let's see an example. So in this case, as long as x is less than 10, this block of code will be executed, okay? In this case, it will be infinite loop because true is true all the time. It doesn't change. So it will basically display hello indefinitely. Okay. Example 3. So this statement will not get executed because we're actually using false. Do while is similar to while loop. The only difference is that in do while case, you're going to execute this block of code first, and then you're going to see whether this Boolean expression is true or not. So when you're using do while, you always execute this block of code once at least. Okay, so here this statement will be executed first. So x is 0 and x equals 1, and then it will it will see whether x is less than 10 or not. Okay, t-shirt question. Suppose X is I assign like a 20. What is this value? Is there going to be any value to be printed out? So let's say X is 20. I set this X with a 20. Okay, so audio is bad again. All right. Let me actually refresh. Reboot my router again. Okay, so I'm back. Yeah, I'm not sure whether this has something to do with the snowstorm that we all have in half of United States right now. We're having a heavy snow. All right, so I'm going to just move on. It's pretty straightforward question. So if I have X equals 20, it will display 20 first, and then it will compare, okay? Because X is not less than 10, it will stop, okay? All right, so here we are going to display this one. Yes, in this case, because it's true, it will display forever. Yeah, Chuck is San Jose. You don't have snow there, right? Lucky you. Okay, coding guidelines. So common programming mistake is when using do while loop is forgetting to write the semicolon after the while statement. So in this case, you have to have a semicolon. For loop. So for loop is the, by the way, for loop is simplified in Java SE5. So this is pre-Java SE5 syntax, and of course this one works with the existing, after Java SE5. So basically you initialize expression, initialization expression, and then loop condition and step expression, and the block of code will be executed. So let's actually see the example and explain it. So in this case, I have int variable, so I initialize it to 0 first, okay? And then I execute the code, and then I see whether that is the condition is met, okay? And then my mistake. First of all, you initialize it, and then you check whether condition is met or not. If the condition is met, you execute the code. And once you execute the code, you perform this step expression. So it's going to increment it by 1. So this is the same thing as this. Okay, so here you check the condition first, and then execute the code, and then you perform increment expression, and it goes on. Okay, so branching statement is a break, continue, and return. So there are unlabeled break and labeled break. The unlabeled break is like this. There is no the label. So here, whenever you are using break, it will break out from the for block. Okay, looks like audio is again having a problem. Okay, so it's back. All right, this is not good today. Can people hear me okay? I don't see any response. Can people hear me okay? Yeah, looks like I have to start it again. Yeah. Hello? Okay, so yeah. All right. Yeah, during the past 2 webinars, things were fine. Yeah, today I'm not sure. I think it may have something to do with the snowstorm we might have, but I'll actually check with the GoToWebinar guys and to find out what's going on today. All right, good. So page 44, basically when you have the break statement, is going to break out from this for loop. Okay. So in this case, we have this is a for, so we initialize I to 0, and this is a condition. Now, this is what is called the string array. So this is an array of strings. So I initialize this string array called the names with this set of names. Okay, and then I have a search name and found name. So basically, I'm trying to search whether there is a name called YZA in this array. Okay, so as soon as I actually find it, so the equals method, this is a method from a string class. You provide the argument of search name. So when it returns true, that means the search name matches with this name. I set the found name equals true, and then I want to break out from for loop because I found the matching name. Okay. So the flow of control transfers to the statement immediately following the label terminate statement. Yeah. So, okay. So this is a labeled break statement. So let's see an example. So in this case, we have a label. Okay. So the label, the syntax of the label is name of the label and the colon. So when you see this break, okay, it will break out from whatever for loop that is actually being labeled with this. Okay. It's rarely used, so if you don't understand this syntax, that's perfectly fine. In my Java career, I haven't really used this one a single time, so it's not that much important. Continue statement, again, it has an unlabeled continue statement and labeled continue statement. Unlabeled continue statement is basically you are going to continue. So so in this case, we have the string array. Okay, and then we have the audio connection has been lost again. Okay, it's restored. All right, so it's just got disconnected and restored again. All right. Yeah, I see the hissing sound again myself. All right, so let me see. Yeah, something definitely going on with the GoToWebinar, the guys. Okay. All right, now it's back. Okay. All right, good. Okay, so when you see a continue, whatever things after that will be the ignored, and it will skip to the next statement. So in this case, we are basically trying to find whether there is actually B in the name string or not. In the name, the array of strings here. Okay, so the it's basically we are trying to find how many times you have a B in this array. Okay, so if we actually compare, and if it is not B, then we do not want to execute this count, incremental counting, right? So we basically call it continue, so it goes to next loop. Okay, so in this case, it will have there are 2 instances of B. Okay, so it will display 2. All right. Label continue is basically it continued the looping. In this case, we have the nested for loop. So when you're using continue outer loop, it goes to the outer loops iteration. Okay, so again, I haven't seen the usage of this one at all, so not that much important. Return, yeah, you probably use return a lot. Okay, so return is used to exit from the current method, and the flow of control returns to the statement that calls that calls your method. Okay. So you can return a value like this or like this. Okay. Now this is important. The data type of the value returned by return statement must match the type of method declare return value. Okay. So let's see. Okay, so I want to actually show you an example. So suppose I have another method. Let's say I want to actually use this example. This is a constructor method. Okay, so I'm going to just create another method. Public. Now, if I say string x, say hello. Now, this is a return type of this method. Okay, I should actually do not have the x. Okay, so this method should return string type. Now, because I'm not returning anything, it complains about it. So it says missing return statement. So I'm going to say return, okay, and then x like this. Then the compiler error is gone. Now, if I actually provide, let's say, 4, okay, the type of this is different from the return type that is specified in the method, right? So that's the compiler error. So it says incompatible types. It requires a string as a return type, but it's returning int type. Okay. All right. So that is relatively straightforward. So let's actually take a look at the hands-on lab. Again, hands-on lab is pretty straightforward. So exercise 1 is playing around if and else, and exercise 2 is for loop, and exercise 3 is while loop. Okay, so it's relatively straightforward. So here we are going to just open the project and run it. So here we have if and else statement. So whatever number you enter in this J option pane dialog box will be evaluated into integer, and then will be compared. Okay. All right. So this is if and else statement example. So this is a case. It's probably better to use a switch statement. This is a for loop, and this is a while loop. Again, this is very straightforward, so I don't see any complication. All right, so I'm going to stop right here, and let's spend a few minutes for Q&A. We have already passed 6:10, so let's spend like 3 minutes for Q&A. Okay, so Kathy says it will say webinar will end in 5 minutes. Yeah, so I'm going to actually finish in 5 minutes anyway. Yeah, I think I reserved hour and 15 minutes. Any questions? Yeah, so today's topics are relatively simple. I mean, again, in terms of complexity, I would say it's probably 1.5 out of 5. And in terms of importance level, again, it's probably 1.5 out of 5. Questions?